A repeatedly frustrating game with friends results in my leaving. The DM kills my character. We are now no longer friends. Hello my fellow adventurers, Ryan here from D&D Awakening. Why don't you join us on our travels today with a new Dungeons & Dragons tale? The tragic loss of my character and friend. The game master, who I will call Jason, was new to being a GM, and wanted to run a low fantasy Pathfinder game featuring moral ambiguity and permadeath. I was on board with the other players, and we created characters. I created and played a paladin named Tristan, expecting him to face a rude awakening from this brutal world. What I did not expect was how harrowing the game would be. Thieves managed to steal from our characters, every day, all our gold each time. Encounters Jason made explicitly for us to gain rewards were brutally hard, composed of creatures of challenge ratings at least 5 levels above ours. NPC authorities were almost universally obtuse and arbitrarily hostile, leaving us confused about who we could trust, and what encounters our DM actually expected us to handle. On the other hand, Jason was phenomenal at building an atmosphere and world, and we were all excellent role players. I for one thought that many of these issues stemmed from Jason getting used to running his own game. Deaths happened, and we all saw this as pretty dramatic and tragic as opposed to unfair, or the fault of Jason. If anything, I felt those permanent party deaths was my fault, due to playing a headstrong paladin, leading us to take a cautious approach. However, Jason did tell us that we were missing out on potential treasure by avoiding encounters. Meanwhile, we struggled to maneuver through plots of intrigue, where we would try multiple ideas, all useless, leaving our dirt poor, level 5 characters sleeping in alleyways at night until an NPC ally would, days later, tell us what we had to do. I constantly felt as though we were groping in the dark, that it was impossible to gain information. I kept pushing the rest of the party to take risks. We were here to play Pathfinder, right? And Jason had told us we were missing parts of his game due to hesitation. We just needed to catch a break to recoup our losses. Now, I should explain that out of game, things had not been going well for me. Long story short, I was depressed, and not especially confident in my competence in real life. In game, my character had become a scapegoat for the party's misfortunes, a fact not helped by the criticism of multiple NPCs. A fact which, in hindsight, led me to doubt my own judgment, and made me hesitant to talk openly with my friends for fear of reprisal. I needed an escapist fantasy where I could overcome an unfair world rather than fall victim to it. To get something right, I considered leaving Jason's game on and off for months, staying on in the hopes of seeing things improve. Our party had recently become fugitives after being forced to burn down a plague-ridden city. We fled as wanted men and women to a Crusader castle, a fortress of paladins where Tristan had hoped to join their order. The rest of the party were afraid of approaching the authorities, for fear of our character's permanent execution. I was loath to tread familiar ground of rushing recklessly into a situation leading to more party death. So, I reached out to Jason. If I were to come forward and admit to the Crusaders about our involvement with the port city's burning, and explain that we had no other choice in order to prevent it spreading, is it possible that our party would receive asylum? I asked. Jason replied that yes, it was indeed possible to make this confession and secure the safety of the party, at least temporarily. In game, I proposed this idea to the party, but that none of the other party members had to be within the city when I approached the authorities. The party had mixed reactions, some outright stating how stupid the idea was because it was too risky. We agreed that I would hold off from following through until we had completed a job to recover a lost or shipment. In need of funds, we set out alongside an NPC companion. After several days' travel and a random encounter and a successful battle against a gang of ogres, I was in high spirits. That random encounter was the first time I had fun in months. We found the cart's wreckage, and tracks hinting at an attack by insect-like monsters between the size of a wolf and a bear. With a few knowledge checks, we determined these were rust monsters, insect-like predators that fed on ore but would also hunt live prey for trace metals in their blood. We followed their trail to an abandoned quarry and stood at the lip overlooking the descent. Now, I was feeling confident that we could handle 3 or 4 such creatures. We were a party of 5 level 6 adventurers with an NPC aiding us. We would probably lose some of our gear, sure, but we could win, and we'd score a much needed win. I was tired of agonizing with and against the other players over every risk. We were here to play Pathfinder. I tossed a metal shield into the quarry with a clang, expecting the rust eaters to emerge and take the bait. 3 of them scrambled from the dirt, joined by a larger specimen. Jason set up his initiative tracker, labeling this creature as a rust lord. As one mass, they ignored the shield and tunneled into the walls of the quarry, straight for us. Rust monsters typically don't have a burrow speed. Now, DMs can and should adjust monsters to fit their needs. I do it all the time. But there had been no sign of this when we investigated the site of the cart attack. We held our own until the Rust Lord arrived. Another character, a fighter, swung at the Rust Lord and hit. Before his weapon dissolved. This caught me by surprise. The Rust monster I was familiar with only ate weapons when it attacked and hit, not when an attacker struck it. The rest of the pack were overwhelming our party. We were looking at losing multiple party members in the space of 2 rounds because I had once again rushed in. I was at a loss. Weren't we supposed to fight these things? Wasn't that Jason's intention? Wasn't this an encounter he had planned for us? Wasn't this something we could win? I used a hero point, asking for a direct clue. Is this a fight we can win? I asked. Jason replied, this is not a fight that you can currently win. No. On my next turn, I cut away my hard-earned scale mail to distract the beasts. We've got to run. Tristan shouted. The rest of the party followed suit, losing several pieces of hard-won gear. After getting back to the road, my companions rounded on me, accusing me of recklessness, demanding to know what I was thinking, shouting how stupid I had been to rush into another fight. I quietly answered that I thought it had been the right thing to do, avoiding the eyes of the other players as they continued to demand answers. I felt it was not Tristan facing these accusations, but me. We have to return to the fortress. We can't stay here. We have to regroup. I whispered, trying to curb my rising panic. The remaining 30 minutes of that session was a blur of back and forth between the rest of the party about what to do, with Jason, through the NPC, challenging us to stay and finish the job, to lay a trap for the rust monsters in the trees where they wouldn't be able to dig through the roots, a suggestion which confused me. How could Jason expect us to stay and fight after that? Let alone survive. Were we somehow meant to have figured out that rust monsters couldn't dig through tree roots on our own? I stayed silent for fear that I would either rage at everyone present or burst into tears. The next day, I announced in Messenger that I was leaving the game. Jason later explained to everyone that he had expected us to learn to research the opponents. To find indirect solutions to deal with difficult enemies a la the Witcher series, emphasizing study and research about encounters before forming plans and heading in. This has left me with an anger that I can't shake even to this day. Why couldn't you have told us this at the game start? The other players continued to keep me abreast of the developments in the game story, including the success of Tristan's plan to come forward, earning safety for the party within the Crusader fortress. But also, of Tristan's murder at the hands of one of the party members, who, to make a long story short, had received orders to kill him as vengeance for attacking her guild master's sister. This I heard from the other players. Jason hadn't conferred with me about this at all. Hadn't even told me he had done this. His explanation? I used Tristan in a way that would mean I wouldn't be forced to roleplay your character and he'd still be relevant to the plot and party going forward. His death has played a really pivotal role in driving the party forward and tied up a loose end that was left from you leaving. I would now never be able to continue Tristan's story after putting so much time, though, and care into his character, his development, and his survival. It was over. And I wasn't even there to see it end. I was invited back, but that's another story. If you enjoyed today's tragic tale of Tristan, then why not stick around and enjoy another tale, on screen now.